couple of weeks ago I made a video where I started the process of building an acoustic guitar from a client's very sentimental old piano, and now without further ado, let's finish that build up. Okay, last week we went through the process of preparing to make these two acoustic guitar bodies and preparing the wood, the special wood and whatnot, and we got to that point. So here now I'm starting to sketch out and put in the electronics, which I had to try a new different brand to fit into these skinny bodies that I've never made before, and I made a mistake. There's like an arch to this. On the other guitar, I'll put it in a better spot so it fits the arch better, but I'm going to have to make a little gasket for that. I never used this kind before. I had to get something different because the body's so thin. This is all I could find. I didn't even notice that there was a slight radius to that, and so that's one of the reasons why I made this guitar out of closet doors, was to sort of problem solve as I went and discover things like that. And so there was the system working, because now this guitar obviously I will be selling, but it's not the special one, and so if it has a little flaw, I can just make that reflect in the price. You can see here I'm being much more careful on this one to just take a little bit off and keep going back and forth, because I'd rather take off too little than too much. And of course I had to cut the neck and the fingerboard, and I used my Avid CNC for that, of course, because as we all know, I'm obviously not a real woodworker. And then of course it just comes off the CNC ready to use. There's no other work that needs to be done. Lately I've been finishing my fingerboards before I put the frets in, just to make it easier than trying to finish around frets or over frets. It seems to be working pretty well for me, and of course, the sides and everything get finished later, but just get that base coat on. Then if I fretted it off camera. You've seen me do that enough times. I got a few videos about that. Looking pretty good. So then I had to do the rest of the sanding on the rest of the neck, and I did all that and finished it again using that natural earth paint, natural varnish, which I really like. And I'm still doing this by hand. This is where I put the little metal insert that my neck adjustment butts up against, and you can see I spent a lot of money on this part. Of course, there's a bunch of guitar setup work to do, and here you can see I'm using my square rocker, which I've been making some changes to in the next batch, which I'll have a video about soon. But you can see how on those flat edges, since I powder coat them, I have to then go and true up all the edges because the powder coating isn't true, and it leaves that sort of ugly look to it, like that sort of faded look. And so the latest batch I made, I didn't powder coat them, so those edges look beautiful. But there's some pros and cons to that, which I'll discuss in this future video, if you guys stick around for that. This is by far the most nerve-wracking part of the entire build. Like I mentioned, this guitar being made for the client is being made from a piano that is very special to him. And the only evidence that I have of it being this piano is the finish that I've been trying to keep as much as possible, and most importantly, this logo right here. It's the only piece of the wood that he had that had any reference to the piano on it that I could preserve for him. And so I only had one shot at doing this right, and this is why I very fastidiously created a template on my laser and did a bunch of test cuts to make sure it was going to work good before I cut the actual one, which is what we're watching now. And yeah, man, I was nervous because I just did not want to mess this up. But I didn't. It came out perfect, and I'm really happy about that. Now with all the parts cut and ready to go, I can start actually laying out my guitar. And here I'm using my center square tool that I invented, as well as my perfect little ruler to just find the center of the guitar and start getting on my placement, measuring 6 times and getting everything perfect before drilling a hole. And but now check this out. Part of this design that I'm really into is this bolt attached top. I glue it and then I also bolt it, so if the glue starts to fail and it starts to peel, the bolts will hold it in place. And if you ever had to take it off and reset it, you can use these bolt holes to realign it. So what goes in this hole is this threaded insert, and then we run a screw through the top, bada bing, bada boom. However, on this guitar, since it's so thin, I can't just stick my hand in there and stick it in the hole. I can kind of reach this bottom one, but this top one's really tricky. So what I did is I had this bent tool, and I can get it in. I can reach in and kind of get it in the hole like that, just enough to get the screw through the top to thread it a couple times so I can grab it with pliers and pull it. So that's what I'm going to try to do right now. Let's see what happens. I can't let this video run at full time or with the sound on because you'll hear me swearing and you'll fall asleep. It took forever and it was a total pain in the neck, but I had to modify that tool a little bit, and I bundled up some little wads of tape on it and everything to help me finally figure out how to get that in that hole. But I'll probably never make this guitar this thin again, so I'm not too concerned about it being a future issue. And if I do, I think I would design around that, maybe make that back cavity cover centered or something. It felt weird not sanding this guitar at all and just jumping right to putting a little bit of a finish coat over it as it was. I felt like I was cheating and skipping a step, but it was really important to preserve that look. And so now back to the original guitar, I can start practicing some of my techniques for getting the electronics in and how I'm going to combine the electronic systems and, and all that fun stuff, doing the actual setup. And here's a weird little thing I had to do. Because I have a magnetic pickup in there as well, I want the strings to be grounded to the electronics, and so I just drilled a hole in this one string ferrule and basically just wrapped a wire around there so the guitar string will touch it. And then since I use a 0 fret, all of the strings touch that fret, so I don't have to touch all the strings, just one, and then they all touch each other. And this is my new soldering iron. I got it from WEP Tools that I'm looking forward to trying out. So far so good. I'll give you the full endorsement report in a couple years maybe. But so far I like it. And I had to do some sort of creative wiring to make it so I could add the piezo system, which is active with a 9-volt battery, to this passive magnetic system and have them all come out one jack. It was a little bit more complicated than the ones I've done in the past because of just this particular system I used. But, I got it all together. I tried making knobs from the wood that the guitar is made of, but it was just too soft and not working well, so I just made these kind of fun little knobs out of some reclaimed wood. And then this pickguard was inspired by a comment left by Negotiable Affections on the first YouTube video about this guitar. The owner of the guitar was looking for something special to put on there and really liked that saying, so hey, thanks for your contribution, man. I don't think I mentioned this when I was discussing the electronics, but I did fix that dropped N on the word magnet there, by the way. But this guitar has two outputs, one that you can use either the piezo or the magnetic or both together through, and the other one that goes just to the magnet. So you could actually run separate signals and like run one clean or one right to the PA system or whatever. That was an idea that the client had that I really liked. Well, here, I'll demo it in the reveal. As I'm sure many of you know, I very rarely do sponsored content on this channel, like very, very rarely. And the way I keep this channel alive is thanks to the support I get over on patreon.com/TimSway, and also from people that are have the means and the interest in buying some of the things that I make. Besides the guitars, I also make a whole bunch of different tools that I sell over at squaretools.com. And if you happen to have a guinea pig, go check out guineapigtanks.com. That's me too. Back to the show. if I could just do stuff like this for the rest of my life, I'd be really happy. I mean, obviously, I'm a guy that makes stuff out of reclaimed and upcycled material, so I really love the challenges and all the things that happen around that. But I get really excited when I get to do that with something that's special and unique to the client. So this was a real joy to build, and I hope you enjoyed following along. Thanks a lot, and be good.